welcome back. So, I watched the 3 episodes of Handmaid's Tale. I kind of wanted to just talk about them a little bit. I'm not going to go into full spoilers or anything like that. I'm going to mention a few things. So, if you haven't watched the 3 episodes, probably go watch it, come back, unless you're just like, I don't care, which is perfectly fine. I felt like these were the lightest episodes, like feeling wise. There was like a couple really tense scenes that I'm going to go over, but for the most part, it really felt really slow. It really felt like we are setting up more than we're trying to end. And I did talk. There's like a hair that just will not go back into place. Sorry, guys. There, and I think that's on purpose. I don't really think like you're supposed to watch this show, this last season, and feel like it's a conclusion. I think you're supposed to feel like it's a conclusion for now, but we're setting up for a lot of stuff for the Testaments TV show coming up. So the creation of New Bethlehem, I'm not sure if I like it. In my opinion, they mentioned it, I think, a little bit last season, but they're really going hard into it this season. Like, all 3 episodes had this idea of New Bethlehem. I'm thinking they're trying to take this show from a dystopian, which it's been for like the last 5 seasons, to a utopia, which is maybe this caused the downfall of Gilead, is that something happens within New Bethlehem and it all gets exposed, because the promise about New Bethlehem is that it's supposed to be a lot more liberal, I think is what they said, and a lot more free for women. So we're going back to women have the right to read, women have a right to have a job, women have rights to make money again, and all this stuff. But if you know anything about a utopia, there's always a hidden underground thing. And now I love the commanders that are involved. And I cannot remember their names, so I do apologize. But the commanders that are involved in this are like, I can kind of believe them. So it's not like you're going, like they're what's kind of happening is the evil commanders that were so for Gilead are kind of dying out, and you have kind of this is what Gilead was supposed to be to begin with. Now, do I believe that? No. Because if Gilead was supposed to be like this from the very beginning, we would have had a Gilead like this. Now, would it have been passed? Would people have been okay with it if this was the Gilead? If we didn't have everything that we have, what we've framed Gilead as, like the torture of women, the brothel that we don't really know too much about, but I think we're gonna get more, and we know according to Mora that the brothel is not a safe place. We know this from what Moira has said to June in the very first season. So, like, we know this. And we know how Moira gets out. Because we see it, she is able to escape, and then she goes up to Canada. So, right now, Canada is the prime utopia for these people. And we're kind of getting the consideration that maybe they travel to more than just Canada, which is a good possibility. They're free in Alaska right now, Canada. None of this has touched Europe, so we know that there's probably some people that got out, maybe went all the way to Europe. And then I wouldn't be surprised if some people escaped to Mexico and to the West. We know that the western part of America is still safe. So if you can get to outside of the Gilead Spear, the West we know is still Gilead free. That is still considered the United States. So but what's going on is Canada, I think, is getting overran by, everybody trying to escape from this Gilead. And they're like, we're being overrun. Okay, these commanders that are trying to make amends for what they've done are making this new Bethlehem where they can send these refugees. Now, if I was a Canadian person, adversary for Canada, knowing everything that's going on, I would be kind of intrigued about this because they are being overrun with the refugees. It sounds like a good plan, and if these commanders keep their word, it could be fantastic. Now, I think with Nick being involved and then the other two, I could kind of believe this. I believe that these commanders want to make amends for everything that happened. They kind of, an interesting thing that one of the commanders mentions about their new wife, actually, is that she's an old wife of Gilead. Which is kind of interesting because we have Aunt Lydia that's still around. Aunt Lydia's still around. She's still kicking. Probably the best aunt that we've seen. We haven't really seen any of the other ones. But we know she has a good heart. Everything she does is for, like, what she thinks is right. So when she hits one of her girls, she thinks it's to put them back in their place. And, like, they'll learn from what they did. And, like, she's doing the right of God and all this stuff. She really thinks she's doing the right thing. And that's the thing about some of these characters that we've grown to love in some fashion, is that we have very flawed characters that have been completely and totally brainwashed and stuff like that, that they think, oh, yeah, I'm just going to take that girl's eye out and then she's going to become, better than what she is. And I love Janine as a character, especially, like, I feel like she's always kind of a sheep, but she finally in this season, I think, is going to become a strong character because she finally tells Aunt Lydia, you need to stop. Like, this is where I'm at right now, and this is where I don't think she's the safest, but I think the road that she was going towards is going to lead her there. I think she is going to probably end up being part of the rebellion, and I think the other girls are going to be as well. I think there is going to be, because they know more than a lot of the other handmaids, according to what Moira was saying in the first season, like, she seems like she knows a lot of information. So I'm not going to be surprised if these 4 girls are not part of the rebellion at some point and not part of Mayday. And I think the reason why this series has gone on, is able to go on as long as it has, is because of Mayday. So, like, all the characters at some point, so you of course have had June. She's like the extreme, like, symbol of Mayday. Everybody kind of wants, especially after she helped all those kids and all those people escape to Canada. Now, did she start the overpopulation of the Canadian problem? Probably. Like, but at the same time, it was the right thing to do. And then it was up to Canada to help these people out. And then if they needed to, get them with their families and kind of disperse them somewhere else, that's kind of the thing. Like, because you don't want to send these people back. That's the whole thing. That I'm not going to get into politics here. You can in this show because it's very relatable. I'm not going to. But you can relate it to everything that is going on in this culture right now. So I see where Canada is coming from. And I see why New Bethlehem is interesting to them. For the most part. Like, but at the same time, what I liked about their message, the Canadian message, is, are we sending them to go through the same terror and everything that they just... A lot of them have recovered. Like, Moira, like, seems like she's pretty stable. Martha, like, she seems pretty stable, but she's like, I want to find my sister, which makes complete and total sense. Like, and I don't get why June really gets mad at her for this, because at the same time, like, everything that June does is either to protect Nick, to protect her 2 daughters, or to protect Moira or, like, Luke. Like, that's all her thing is. Like, she's very, like, she saves a whole bunch of other people in the process, like, thank goodness, but, like, if she finds you as, a blockade from that, like, usually she just takes you down. So, and I feel like she's an interesting, I guess, hero figure, because I don't really think she sees herself that way. I think she just sees, like, we need to get these people out. And then I think she thinks in some ways maybe she would save her daughter in the process or something like that. It's always this thing with her that she's going to save her daughter. Like, and this is my thing with this that I really like the book for, is that you don't know what happens. And having it all drawn out for me is just making it feel too long. Like, there's scenes in this that I'm like, I'm so thankful that, like, we've gotten to experience. Like, her sending all those people up to Canada. Like, I cried. Like, I literally cried about it, because it's like, we finally, in a series of non-hope whatsoever, somebody, like, we finally got a hopeful scene. And I think that was, sorry guys, that was something, like, that really stood out to me. But then we've had so much other stuff that's, like, it's not important. Like, like, we only get, like, one season to really see New Bethlehem, unless New Bethlehem is, like, a really big thing in the Testaments. I cannot remember for the life of me, because I like to shove that book in the back of my brain and pretend it doesn't exist, if New Bethlehem is mentioned. So, and there must be a lot of stuff that happens, because right now in this 3 episodes, here's where we're at. We just got off the train. June ends up in Alaska with baby Nicole, which we know is, I remember baby Nicole being important in the Testaments. And they kind of started that whole thing when she's born. So baby Nicole right now is with June's mother in Alaska. That's where baby Nicole is right now. Right now we kind of have Nick is going back to New Bethlehem, June, Luke, Moira, and then the other guy, I can't remember his name. I'm guessing he's probably going up to Alaska. I know that's where June wants, but stuff must happen, because Luke must lose it and is like, tells them like they have to go to Gilead to save Hannah. That's probably one thing that's gonna happen. To me, Luke doesn't know Gilead, so it would be it would be better, and we know this from the trailers, that they go back to Gilead. So we know Moira and June go back to Gilead, because it makes the most sense for those two. They know what they're getting themselves into. They've been there long enough, and they know escape routes. They know how to escape. They know, and June has a pretty much an in with Gilead to get out. Like, I don't think Nick will ever let her just be in Gilead. I think he's gonna find out and probably be pretty mad at her for going back. I think Nick's like, you have this lovely life. Like, that's how we end episode 3, is like, they go through this traumatic experience in the carnival, like, where they're trying to, get Moira and Luke out. They get him out, and he's just like, go live your life. Go finally take that break that you deserve. And we know something happens, because we can't have a full season of no drama, even though that was intense inducing. And the first episode with them on the train, and then they all figure out it's Serena, that was pretty intense. Why? This was my thing about that scene. That was kind of, to me, kind of messed up a little bit. Which, I mean, this series is the factor that they wouldn't let June just take Nicholas. Like, just let June take him. Or let the cop take him. Like, just because he's still young enough where I don't think he's brainwashed or anything like that, to where, like, if anybody took him, raised him, like, it's that whole, thing about, environment and all that stuff. Nature versus nurture. We don't need to get into that, but I think, like, he's just a baby. Like, there was no reason for them to, they should, the cops should have just taken Nick. Now it's Serena jumped off the train. Definitely not. But I think, these are good people that, okay, you have a wife on the train. Yeah, I would beat her up too. Like, I felt their anger. I felt the reason for their anger. Yes. Like, I would, if I faced all that trauma, I had somebody that was a symbol of that trauma. Yes, I would have done the same thing, but I would have not punished the child for it. And I think that was June's thing too. Like, that she had to watch this thing, because it's like, okay, now you're just like at their same level. Like, and something about Gilead that you have to say is moral with them. Like, they would never hurt a child. Like, they would never, men can be tortured. Like, we've had a couple of scenes with, them throwing rocks at men for different things, other women, but they would never hurt a child. That was the thing with Janine wanting to jump off the bridge with her child, was because she had the child. They didn't care if she jumped. Like, in all honesty, she could have jumped and it wouldn't have mattered. It was because she had a child in her arms and was going to jump with the child. I know I'm going way back into some seasons, but I wanted to cycle up that point. And I really like Nick in this season. I think he's going to be a really interesting character going forward. I think he's going to end up, I feel where he's at. He's such a middleman in all this, because he starts out as an eye. So he's very deep in the government already. And then Offred just decides to make him a commander, probably to keep him away from June. So he has to marry, I think her name is Rose or something. I don't really like her as a character. Like, I find, out of all the wives, I find her kind of boring. Because there's some wives that are more interesting than others. Serena's just interesting because I think we get to expand on her character so much. Like, obviously, you get to know, like, why she got that way. Like, I feel that she, I feel her pain. Like, I do feel Serena's pain a lot, because it's like, she's a very intelligent woman. This is the thing that, I kind of like that the show's expanded on, is this character. Because she's not just an evil dictator woman. Like, she's been punished by the system that she helped create. So, it's like, and to me, Fred was not the greatest husband. Like, I think he gets really corrupted by the society, and I think she's better off. And that just kind of gives you kind of like the acting and stuff like that. But, and she says that. She's like, yeah, I got Nick out of this whole thing, but it's been terrible, And you have to live with, this is the system that you helped build. So her being part of New Bethlehem made perfect sense. That made perfect sense in the direction of the story, because New Bethlehem is these people that are making amends for the system that they created. Up front, I don't know what it's going to be like when we really start getting really into it. And I don't know if we're actually really going to see New Bethlehem at its, full thing. I think we're going to have to wait for the Testaments TV show to really see it. If this is even a thing in the Testaments. I know, based off of what I remember from the books, is that the last thing we get from book 1 is the lecture hall scene. So we know that Gilead at some point gets dismantled. We know that there is no longer a Gilead after we read the first book. So how that happens is probably going to be in the Testaments. We're probably going to get everything from the Testaments, and then we'll probably see some of that after, like, the dismantlement of Gilead. Now, if it's really like this little city and it's like they dismantled like the whole East Coast, and then like they grow like this new Bethlehem, and it's really not, that's what the show is telling me. I cannot remember what the books like, and that's something I might look into if I do decide to review more of this TV show with this last season, is that I might look into kind of where does the Testaments kind of land in this whole thing. Or I might just wait for that TV show because I know that's coming up. They've already announced it. I still love June. June, and I think June keeps me watching because June is going to do some crazy stuff. Like, she's always off the rails. Like, she's like, oh, Moira and Luke are in no man's land. I have to go save them. And I'm like, do you? Like, why? But with her connection to Nick, and I think this is something like, I was watching it inside the episode, and the guy was like, I wasn't expecting this to be a love triangle. I wasn't either, but like, I was not expecting to watch this show and it to be a love triangle. I was expecting you guys to maybe stop at the first season, and then, we would move on, and I guess we'd jump to the Testaments. I don't know if they knew that we were going to get that book, and that's like, because these last couple of seasons have been definitely like, oh, baby Nicole. Okay, we know that's going to be a big thing in the Testaments if you've read the book. We know that Hannah is in, we know the characters that make up the Testaments, and we know Aunt, not to ruin the thing, but we know Aunt Lydia, and has she already been, I don't know if she's been announced. But we know some of the characters that are going to make an appearance in this new show. So it's like, okay, now we're spending this last season. Where did everybody end up by then? And then where are we going to start? Is kind of where we're going to end. And it's not going to be a fun conclusion just because of that. Because I don't think it's going to be one of those endings that it's going to feel like an ending. I feel like you're going to have to watch the Testament TV show to get a full ending. And I don't know, I'm hoping that they shorten this Testament show. It is a pretty big book, but it is 2 characters. And I think like we could do kind of like maybe 2 seasons, or like an episode with one character, one episode with the other character, until, we finally get to a point where they're all, I see this being 2 seasons. The Testaments, if it's more than 2 seasons, it's too long. And I think what else kind of ruins, like, there's a few characters I'm missing. I miss some of the other handmaids. I thought Alexis Blandel did such a good job. I cannot remember her character's name, but she did such a good job with her character that I'm hoping maybe she makes like a cameo. I can't remember where she ends up, but I hope she makes like a cameo. There's a couple of the other girls that I think are hinted at the 4. We don't see anybody else. It really sticks with Janine as the main character in that scene. She mentions them. So if you remember, like, all of those characters, like, you know who's going to be involved, but I can't remember who's who. But that is like the big thing is, you know, that there's a lingering thing, like, this is not going to be an ending that I think we're going to all be happy about. I think there's going to be some stuff that it's going to be like, you have to watch the next show. And that's what they're leaning into. I've been talking for 30 minutes, so I'll kind of try to wrap this up. I'm sorry, guys. Actually, that gives you like 10 minutes per episode. So I guess that's not too bad. But you know, if you've read the Testaments, you know how that ends. If they're going to follow that, I don't know. They have the ability to just end this, like, the Testaments in like 1 to 2 seasons. And I think that's where they should end it. I think The Handmaid's Tale has gone on way too long. But they added a lot of stuff to this, so. But yeah, I don't even think I was ever thinking it was going to be 6 seasons long. Like, they've added way too much. There's been some good stuff. Serena and June's relationship is keeping me going. I think Nick's character development has been really interesting. June herself was always going to be an interesting character, no matter what happened. And it's this whole thing of, it needs to end. I'm glad it's ending. I'm glad we're getting a Testament show. I don't think everything's going to be answered. But I would really like it. I'm really hoping the Testaments ends and then we see that lecture scene. We haven't seen that lecture scene yet. And I think that's a very important, like, it was after reading such a heavy book and then you read that lecture and you know it ends. You know that horror ends. Is like the most amazing scene ever. I know, as much as I talk about just the ending of The Handmaid's Tale and where Offred / June ends up is really important, but it really is that lecture scene. And we don't know how long that is down the line. I don't think it tells you. I don't have an original copy. I just have a comic book copy. It might tell you, but I think it's going to change now that we know how everything ends. And what they're building up to, how important New Bethlehem's going to be, which I will not be surprised if maybe the 4 girls end up in New Bethlehem. That is a prediction. And Aunt Lydia ends up in New Bethlehem. What Aunt Lydia does with those girls is, she is as unhinged sometimes as June is. Like, and it's more in like a cleaner way. Like, but she does have her unhinged moments. And I think she really does love June. She just is like, June's an unhinged, person. And I'm like, I would be unhinged too. I think all these women, like, with whatever character you look at that's actually broken the mold of their their statue, um like, you don't blame them because it's such a horrific thing that they're going through. Like, you would eventually break. And I think we're seeing that throughout the show in multiple attributes with multiple women. And June is just the most iconic one, but you would eventually have that breaking point. And I love that Janine is finally there. I hope they don't step back on her character at all. That's one of my worst worries, that we don't hear about a lot of these other characters when it comes to the Testaments, so we will see. But anyways, thank you for being here for 35 minutes, just having me ramble about these 3 episodes. I think this is probably how I'm going to review it. I'm not going to do it episode by episode. I don't think there's like enough. There's enough, but I think I'll probably just do it three episodes. And we'll review this last season together. I will probably be back for the Testaments. But anyway, if you like this type of review, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!